People hate going to the dentist and finding out they have cavities that need to be drilled and filled. But did you know that cavities can be reversed if detected early enough? Welcome to HealthBiz Briefs. I'm David Williams, president of Health Business Group, here with Jordan Rubinson, CEO of Cavisense, which is focused on detection of early-stage cavities. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here.
You've had experience across the U.S. and Israeli medtech startup scenes. How do they compare? What's the same? What's different?
So obviously they're all trying to do the same thing, coming up with great ideas and ultimately sort of commercialize them. And they're all going through the same regulatory processes at the end of the day. I think, Israelis, obviously they've done extremely well in sort of the high-tech fields and are well recognized for that area. The ecosystem of the medical technologies is developing in Israel. It's a little different in the sense that, they don't really have the capital, the intensivity that you find in the United States, so they're not as well capitalized. And therefore they tend not to get into sort of the biological, pharmaceutical treatments. Chemistry side tends to be much more sort of device-driven, diagnostic-driven, digital health technologies so that they can get to market faster with a lot fewer resources. But having said that, they have a very strong entrepreneurial spirit with a lot of excellent, technologies and people. They all have a very entrepreneurial mindset, obviously coming from their, sort of existential situation there in Israel and army sort of military culture. In the United States, the culture is really true that they jump in. Their lives are full of stress, so they understand, how to handle stressful situations, and they don't really, they're not afraid to fail. It doesn't tag you in your career. In fact, it's more of a badge of honor, so to speak. Because now you know better what not to do, so to speak. So those are some of the differences. Obviously, the U.S. is much better capitalized. Companies have, maybe a second chance, so to speak. If their first try doesn't go so well, they can, access much larger markets on the biopharmaceuticals and so forth.
Why does early detection of cavities matter?
Yeah, that's obviously the subject of my career as of late. And I didn't know this before I was involved in Cavisense. But essentially, there's a number of technologies that have recently come about such that if you once you have a cavity, right, there's really not that much you can do about it, right? You've got to drill it and fill it. But if you can, and it's like many other therapeutic areas, David, that you mentioned earlier, for example, in oncology, right? The earlier you can detect something, the better the chances that you can either, sort of prevent it altogether or treat it better once it's there. And so dentistry is no different. So before the cavity sort of erodes and gets into the dentin, and stays in the enamel or is even, imperceptible, you can apply a variety of agents to it, whether it's high density fluoride or newly remineralization agents that are now becoming, available and also fashionable to arrest the development, even in some cases reverse it. And so this notion of early detection is becoming really critical in terms of prevention of the largest, preventable disease out there, which is cavities.
There's a lot of things in healthcare where if you do the right thing, especially in terms of preventing harm down the road, you may lose money as a provider. For what Cavisense is doing in terms of the early detection, will the dentist lose out financially even if they're doing the right thing for the patient?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's quite often you have these disincentives for doing the right thing, But I think in our case, there's enough of an offset. We don't have direct reimbursement with a proper CDT code. They do get money for identifying cavities, which of course we fall into, but it does require an additional expense, albeit fairly modest, to buy our technology. I think the offset really comes from in identifying those cavities earlier. Once they do identify a cavity, they're going to make money in pushing to get X-rays, in applying these SDF and or Riemann agents, and or calling the patient back on a more frequent basis, all of which are compensatory revenue-making opportunities, which more than offset the cost of our device, which is at best sort of $10, even if you use a few toothpicks in the service.
Well, that's it for the latest HealthBiz Brief. If you like what you hear, check out my HealthBiz podcast for a full-length interview with Jordan about his life and career. Jordan Rubinson, CEO of Cavisense, thanks for joining me today on HealthBiz Briefs.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure.